Alright, hello kitties, welcome to another video by yours truly, Varmalus the Malicious. Now today, let me first start off by saying that I realize that I have not been appearing nearly as much on this channel, but I figured that I would do this little video just to sort of tell you guys a lot more about my past, tell you guys a lot more about the things that I used to do. I figured you would all find that very interesting, very intriguing. So, this isn't going to be any type of long scripted, planned out rant or anything. It's just going to be me sitting back telling you guys a bunch of awesome kick-ass war stories from the past, where I was a horseman of the apocalypse, where I was the right arm of the great old ones, and how I conquered dimensions across the entire universal spectral realm, and also let you know a little bit about my life as a vampire. So, I got everything I need to have a good time. I got me some shades. Yeah. Yep. I got me some shades. Got me a beer. Alright. And I'm ready to go. Now, I remember telling you all that I used to be one of the great old ones. That I used to be great pals with all kinds of other highly well-known deities, such as Bokruk, such as Cthulhu, Dagon, Zoth-Amog, Yothmog, all these different well-known gods and deities and characters that people know throughout literature, mainly throughout the works of H.P. Lovecraft, who happened to be a very clairvoyant person. But nobody actually knows just what type of power we wielded. What I, as Zig Marktos, the type of power that I wielded. The basic abilities that the great old ones have is that we have many different forms, like basically all types of deities from several different mythologies. We have the ability to take on nearly any form that we desire, whether it be the form of a cloud or a form of some kind of weather. But mainly just to make life more interesting for us, we like to take the form, we like to assume mortal identities, just so our lives can be a lot more interesting and challenging. Because we realize that we are completely omnipotent beings with all this infinite power. And when you go around showing off all that power, it's going to get very old and very boring and very mundane. Which is why you have to reincarnate yourself a whole bunch of times, just so you can keep your immortal long life interesting. If there's one thing that I was universally known for, it was for being the pillager of the ancient extra-dimensional Yith city known as Pnakotus. Yeah, but anyways, this city, Pnakotus, was on this extra-dimensional alien planet called Yith, which was located in the Faustian Dimension. Yeah, I know. Ironic, right? Yeah, but anyways, me and my brothers, my friends, we initiated this 200-long-year siege on the capital city of the planet Yith, which was Pnakotus, and it was inhabited by who else? The Yithians. Now, the Yithians were basically this hyper-advanced elite race of alien creatures They were basically these big insectoid grasshopper-looking things. If I, you know, they were kind of like a cross between, like, the stereotypical 1950s aliens, like with the big bug eyes, and the gray skin, with just a whole bunch of, like, grasshopper, like, wings and limbs and stuff. That's basically what the Yithians looked like. However, there was something that really attracted us to them. The Yithians were highly advanced. They were highly... take another swig here. The Yithians were highly advanced, but they were also highly elite. They were highly pretentious. They thought themselves to be incredibly better than everybody else. And that sort of drew us to them. That sort of made us want to invade them and conquer them, because they were sort of the most advanced civilization in that galaxy. However, there are a couple really awesome memories I remember from the 2-century-long siege that we made on the capital city of Yith. Basically, the way we rode in is that we took our monster forms. Because, you know, us great old ones, we have these immortal images of us being monsters. Like Cthulhu is like this huge dragon with, like, you know, tentacles all over his face. You know, Dagon is like this huge fish monster. You know, whereas me, I was a gigantic pterodactyl with spider fangs. And, you know, we all had like a sort of a different element. Dagon, Zothamog were in control of the sea, as well as Cthulhu. I was in control of the skies. Bokruk was in control of the land, and all the other old ones whose names escape me at the moment, they all had all the different types of elements. And we basically stormed into the city, and we attacked, and we knocked over buildings down, like, you know, it was like a fucking Godzilla movie or something. It was like a Japanese monster movie. We were just these huge monsters, and we were just knocking over all these huge skyscrapers. It's like, you know, we were just knocking shit over. But then they started fighting back. They had like these huge like artillery guns and stuff, like these huge laser Tesla coil cannons that they started fighting back at us with, and those things hurt pretty badly. I know from experience. Trust me. When I was in my flying pterodactyl form, I took one of those gigantic laser cannon blasts, right in the neck. Like, it hit me right here, like, it hurt like a son of a bitch. I had to spend a while recovering after that. But yeah, basically we abandoned our monster forms, and we just took the forms of knights, of horsemen, of warriors, clad in armor. We rode into the city, and we just fucked everything up. I had my sword in my hand, and we were just going around mutilating everybody, like, it was crazy. And we fought the Yith army for what seemed like for 2 centuries. And then when it finally happened, the reason why I got my reputation, the reason why I got the reputation that I did, why I became universally known as the pillager of the city of Pnakotus, was that when the Yith army was crippled down to its bare bones, down to the strongest man alive, he was the strongest dude there. He was like the Rambo of the Yith army. He knew everything. He was a survival expert. He was a martial arts expert. And this was the thing that would settle the score. Because we had already been fighting for 200 years. And we had to decide whether or not who was going to be the victor or not. So I was selected. I was selected to be the champion of the Great Old Ones. Their #1 swordsman. Their greatest warrior. I rode in with my banner in hand, with my helmet and my armor. And we had to do this the old-fashioned way. No weapons. We just had our hands and our feet. And we just had, basically, we had to kill each other in hand-to-hand combat. It was pretty close. I was the greatest hand-to-hand combatant of all the Great Old Ones. It was close, though. Because basically the way we started out is that the main Yith guy, well, first of all, he was huge. He was huge and muscular. Like, he looked like Zorak from Space Ghost Coast to Coast on steroids. He was huge. Oh my god, the guy was huge. But yeah, he was big, but he was also fast. He was deceptively fast. It's like, first, I thought that he was just big and slow, but he proved me wrong. He got me a good couple of times. Like, right when I was about right when I flipped in the air and I was about to come down, I went hard with a dropping flying knee attack. I thought that, since he's big and slow, I thought I would be able to get him that time, but he reacted like that. And then he dropped his entire upper body down to the ground, and he hit me right in the back of the head, like, oh, and I just fell over. And then eventually, it ended with me I grabbed his fist, I twisted it around, and I ripped both of his arms off. And I took the big, huge, leaf blades that were coming out of his elbows. I stabbed them into both sides of his head, and I turned his whole cranium inside out, like I literally surgically opened his fucking head, and all of his brain started oozing out. It was pretty damn gross, but I was successful. It was a fatality. Yeah, it was like a Mortal Kombat-esque fatality. I killed him in a really brutal-ass way. But it was so satisfying, man. It was so satisfying. I was the king. I was the greatest out of them all. Nobody dared to disrespect me. I was the herald of the Great Old Ones. I was their champion. I was their hero. I was their symbol of strength. If anyone dared to oppose them, they would have to deal with me, and me alone. Eventually, they all passed away. This is about a good, about a good 600 years later. Right when I had grown really comfortable and attached with with all the insect people. And I haven't heard from them since. Let me have another drink here. Okay. Now, moving on to my next story. I may not have ever told you guys this, but I was actually one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. However, they tell you in the Bible that there are only 4 horsemen. Well, I was the 5th one. I was fear. Because the 4 horsemen were war, death, famine, and pestilence. But I was fear. perhaps the greatest, out of all the things that will prove to be the death of humanity. Fear is what prevents people from doing things that would save other people's lives. Fear is what prevents people from doing all kinds of things. But at its own primal roots, fear is the one thing, is the biggest handicap that mankind knows. Fear is the reason why mankind exists in a civilization today. Now, I don't mean to sound like the Scarecrow from fucking Batman or something, but that's just the way it was. I lived and breathed fear. I was all about striking fear into people. You know, oh my God, you guys should have seen me. I was so awesome looking. I had a huge helmet. I had a huge, like, absolutely royal helmet with horns and like dragon's teeth and like spikes and shit. Same I had with my armor. I had chainmail armor, but over all that I had enormous spiky plated armor, and then I had a cape. But what this armor granted me a certain ability. Whenever I wanted to, I could transform into a huge, badass, evil demon. And I could breathe fire. That was only one of the several magical abilities granted to me by that armor. There were a couple instances I remember fighting in battles in like the 7th circle of hell. I remember this one time where I was in the 7th circle of hell, and I was sent in to deal with a couple of prisoners of hell who decided that they wanted to create a huge uprising against the ruler of that circle. Now, exactly which circle it was and what it was all about escapes me at the moment, but I will always remember one of the most death-defying things I've ever done. Did you all know that there are dragons in hell? Yeah. I mean, there are fucking gorgons and medusas and shit in there, so why not dragons? But anyways, I was cursed with a spell that impeded all my magical abilities, including my ability to transform, as well as my ability to cast magic and fire and necromantic spells. So all I had with me were my trusty swordsman skills. And all I could do was fight until I ran off to a cliff. And it was so... the adrenaline was getting to me. It was like there was a huge army of evil, malevolent human husks, of prisoners of hell that were hell-bent on killing me, but on the other side there was like a fucking 5-kilometer drop all the way down into like the fucking sepulcher, okay? It was probably one of the most intense moments of my entire lifetime. So what I did, I fell off that bitch. But then there was a dragon flying out of one of the cliffs. There was a dragon flying out of one of the orifices of the giant sepulcher. It was flying all the way up towards me. And so I sort of figured, hey, this is crazy as hell, but I'll fucking try it anyway. So I landed on top of the dragon. The dragon's like, it's breathing fire everywhere, trying to shake me off. And then I just grab my sword. I climb up to the top of the dragon's head, and I wedge my sword into the dragon's brain. And I start scrambling my sword blade in there, trying to fucking find out what nerves I could do to make it do whatever the fuck I wanted it to do. I eventually figured it out, and I could control the fucking dragon. And then the dragon was like flying up the side of a cliff like, oh! It was epic. Yeah, and then I used that dragon. That dragon was my greatest instrument of destruction. I used it to basically immolate and burn all those sons of bitches. You know, I was eating people. I was using the dragon to eat people. I was flying all over the place until eventually I reached the source. I reached the source, the one prisoner of hell who is leading all these outcasts. And you would not believe who it was. If any of you are familiar, if there are any of you who are familiar with world history, you all may have heard of a really corrupt and insane Roman emperor named Nero. Yeah, that was the guy. You know, I heard about this guy. He was crazy and paranoid, but he was also a raving homosexual. So because of that, I wasn't expecting him to be that good of a fighter. I was wrong. It was pretty intense. He was a pretty good fighter. But then, basically what happened is that, like, he was wielding these two hammers, and I managed to disarm him in one hand, but then I tried to block one hammer with the other hand, and that fucking nearly shattered my elbow, like, oh, and so my arm was like, you know, like I couldn't use the arm because it was absorbing all the shock. So I had to fight this guy with just one arm. I had to fight him with just one arm. And I was like, It was crazy. Eventually, I was so desperate I had to resort to tiring him out. Like I would sort of cut him a little bit here and there, you know, just to make him bleed out a little bit so that he could get tired faster. And then eventually, after he just drained all of his stamina, I just disemboweled him. I thrust the sword of eternal flame into his stomach, and I spilled all of his internal organs out onto the pavement. And he couldn't die, because he was already dead. Yeah, he got shipped off somewhere, and basically, that was just sort of like, that wasn't even more of a job for a horseman of the apocalypse. But I guess it could have sort of pertained to my job as the horseman of fear, considering that, you know, if I killed the leader of like a rebel resistance movement in hell, it would completely squander all of their inspiration and hope to escape the place. Yeah, that's a pretty exciting story. What else is there? Let me think here. Oh, wait. I have a pretty interesting story. This is a much more recent story, but not by a whole much. I remember telling you all that I used to be a vampire, living within the foresty outskirts of Yugoslavia. I lived in a castle, and I was a degrading, aging old vampire. And I basically lived by predating on people, on human beings. So, but one time I was figuring that I was going to die really soon, because for some reason there was something happening to me, not just reincarnated as all kinds of different beings, But there was something happening to me that was degrading me. You know, it's like you see all my features, you see how grotesque I am. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know why I don't have a face anymore. And it was affecting me in all the different shape-shifting forms that I took. And it was starting to rear its ugly head when I was a vampire. And basically what I wanted to do is that I wanted to find a woman to impregnate so I could continue my blood, so I could continue my legacy. That's a pretty interesting story. Basically, I'm not going to go into the whole cliche thing about how I capture like an innocent, pure virgin girl or some shit like that. No, like all the European villages I kept going to, all the girls in them were fucking religious, extremist, fanatical virgins or some shit. So I had to travel all the way to I had to travel to Berlin. I had to travel to the city of Berlin in Germany. And there, I didn't just kidnap one, but I kidnapped 5 different women, and I tried to turn them all. And, you know, it worked for the most part. I tried to turn them all into vampires, but the thing is, something really weird happened. I don't know what it was, but when I bit them all, they just for some reason, they didn't want to go out and suck other people's blood. They wanted to suck their own. Okay? It was weird. Dude, it was weird. Because they just got into this huge, like, 5-some girl-on-girl lesbian orgy. Vampire lesbian orgy. They all immediately started taking off all their clothes. And they started, like, making out and humping each other and just doing all these weird-ass sexual positions. And at the same time, they were all biting the shit out of each other. I was like, hang on, girls. I'm supposed to be the one getting freaky with you, not each other. I tried to stop them all, but then they turned to me and they were like, you know, like that. I was like, okay, do what you want. I'm not stopping you. Yeah, but, but yeah, I basically had to sit there and watch a 5-girl, a completely full frontal nude, 5-girl vampire lesbian blood orgy. It was definitely one of the most visually pleasing things I ever saw in my life. But eventually, the girls all pretty much died. And I was sad. That was the year before I decided to just finally end my life as a vampire and go on to do other things. I don't know why. Maybe maybe my fangs just infected them with some kind of weird bloodlusting disease or something. I don't know. It just left me feeling weird. Maybe that's part of the degradation I've been going through. But for some reason my bonding with Ian stopped it. I don't know. I didn't mean for this to get all depressing and somber. I just meant for this to be fun for all of you. But unfortunately, that's really all the stories I have to give you now, kiddies. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I didn't bore any of you with this. But as always, be sure to post a comment below telling me what you all think. Well, This is Varmalus the Malicious.